And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest episode of the Sling'N podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Kent.
And back on the hot seat tonight is a fan favorite, Mr. Bill Rapier. Bill, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, guys.
Absolutely, man. So, folks, if you are unfamiliar with Bill and his background and his pedigree, I'd invite you to go watch the previous episode that we had where Bill was on the show for his inaugural appearance on your second favorite podcast on the interwebs today. But yeah, so we won't rehash that too much. But Bill, it's been a hot minute since we've seen you. I know you've got some work coming up with Kent. But in the meantime, why don't you catch everybody up, man? What's been new for you in the last several months that you've been on the show?
Well, we've been staying extremely busy. We're coming out of ski season that ended. Our official ski season ended about 2 months ago. I was able to get some good backcountry trips in as recently as about 10 days ago. So that's been really cool, kind of getting up in the mountains and still getting after it. So just between that and then hitting the road and teaching, we keeping very busy. We actually just got back yesterday from the Modern Warrior Conference, which this is the second year that we've done that. And it's kind of a chance to get together with some of the other like-minded trainers in industry and put on a pretty cool weekend. It was Tom Kyer from Sayakali and Harley Elmore from Sayakali and Justin Garcia. He's a jiu-jitsu guy, grappler, combatives guy, and then myself. And this year's Modern Warrior Conference was focused on, or kind of had a modern Minuteman focus to it. So it was a good, solid, guys flew in on Friday evening and just lots and lots of reps, trained Friday night late and then all day Saturday till like 10 or 11 at nighttime, and then kicked out of there right around 5 or so on 5 or 6 on Sunday evening. So it was some good reps there. Good seeing some friends.
That's fantastic. So in a couple episodes past, we had our friends from Apache Solutions on. They talked about the TACCon, the tactical convention that was put on. That sounds like in one of those 1990s action movies when you open a door full of like ninjas training, like what you just came from. So one of the things I'm curious though, when you get a lot of people with that type of skill set all locked into a room together and, kind of working through the problems of life and solving the world's issues, one repetition at a time on the range. Is there any type of an output? Like how is that information consumable to anyone in particular? Or is this something that you guys maybe use internally to like refine your training programs?
Well, it's actually a little bit of both. So in part, we do this just because it's a way to get the other trainers together. I mean, we're all friends, have all been friends for a long time. So for us to be able to get together and teach together, I know I really enjoy when I get to teach with friends. It's definitely, I stay fresher. And I like that format of, we rotate through leads. Almost every topic that was taught could have been taught by any of the guys. And then we just assign different leads for different for the different classes that we're doing. And it just makes for a really cool environment when, one of the guys can be talking, 10, 15 minutes into it. And then, they say something that really resonates with me, and then I'll jump in and say something. And then that'll kind of jog someone else's memory and they'll jump in and speak. And it's a good environment.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So while we're working our way around the room, Bill, we'll come back to you. Kent, what's new with you, buddy?
Man, oh man, just doing the teaching thing. Lots and lots and lots and lots of private lessons. A couple group things. I got Scott Jedlinski from Modern Samurai Project coming up here this coming weekend for 3 days. Then Bill's after him in the rotation of hosted trainers. Then Tim Herron. And that's about enough for me to think of out into the future. Hosting 3 classes that close together is it's a little bit of work, but these guys honestly make it pretty easy and fun and educational. So screw it. What else am I going to do with my weekends? Meanwhile, man, we are booked solid with private classes, which has been great. And still teaching at SDI and still doing the boring corporate day job. That's what's new. And the podcast starts at 9 Eastern. I know, Rodney. I only forgot one time. Motherfucker's going to beat me up. Bill, they thought I was going to be late because I was late to the last show. And I'm like sitting there on the range, like, I don't know what you're talking about. I got 20 minutes till this bitch starts. No, I did.
You're so late.
Yeah, I was late as shit.
Just left your boy hanging.
It's fine. All right, so talk about your soulless stuff, whatever you gingers have that you've got going on. Do you have anything?
Honestly, I wish I had more exciting stuff to like. I got addicted to a couple of recent television shows that I've been playing while I've been working nonstop. I like to have some music or a movie or something playing on my screen. For those that are playing the home game and new to the podcast, I work behind a computer all day, every day. So having some type of a background noise is a lot better than just the sound of my air conditioner. So yeah, other than that, training my ass off in jiu-jitsu. Oh, we did take a family trip to the Tennessee Renaissance Festival.
Oh, turkey legs.
Yeah, turkey legs. Sadly, we did not get turkey legs this time. The lines were ridiculous. But any chance your boy gets to wear a kilt is a good day to me. Right?
Do you wear your kilt? You do your thing?
Fuck yeah, I do.
Okay.
You got to get your Scottish on, bro. You got to do that.
Was there caber tossing involved?
No. I wish there were. They need to have like a Highland Games aspect to that show. Sadly, I will say this though, and I think this is as we're coming out of the whole COVID era, things were substantially diminished. Like some of the booths that they have for all the different vendors that set up their wares. It is pretty cool though. They have like they've got people that have forges and stuff, like local blacksmithing companies, and even some from out of state that come from all over to show off, their custom knives and axes and all other wares. A lot of crafts. Some really cool stuff, a lot of fun activities for the kids. They do a jousting show, so they have like a traditional or a what's the word I'm looking for? Not replication. Reenactment. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. It was going to come to me eventually. They have a reenactment of like the jousting that you would see back in the day with ground combat as well, mounted combat. It's exciting. It's a lot of fun, lots to see. But yeah, you can definitely tell everyone's still kind of getting that foot back in the water. From like, oh my God, are we allowed to wear masks or not? I don't know. So, but otherwise, all good stuff. All good stuff. So, Bill, let's talk. Let's at least get to the topic at hand, and that is the Combat Carbine course that you've got coming up here with Kent. So, why don't you go ahead? Let's just start from the top and work our way through. What can somebody expect to learn going through your Combat Carbine?
So it's actually the combative carbine.
Combative carbine.
Because we do fighting in it as well. I mean, that's one of the things. No secret that I'm big into doing combatives, and I really feel like it's a disservice to people if you don't if you only teach them how to shoot, then you end up being the carpenter that only has a hammer, and every problem looks like a nail to you. And I like to show guys how to smash people and, to transition to both pistol and blade and all these other things as well. But then it kind of gives guys a little bit more options. So basically combative carbine, the focus of it is carbine manipulation. And that's really what I place the most value on when it comes to working a carbine. I feel like there's a lot of guys that can teach you how to lay on your belly and shoot very well. Kind of the standard, fundamentals marksmanship stuff. And we do cover that as well. And we cover some positional shooting, but I really look at the bulk of it as being, how do we manipulate these tools, right? So going everything from, doing circle awareness, doing a loading procedure properly, to strike ready presentations, low ready presentations. When is each one of those, more correct? When would you apply a strike ready versus a low ready presentation? Going through all the different malfunctions, going through shoulder switches. We go through a whole barricade block where kind of doing a barricade procedure that has the least amount of you exposed. And then, so we'll go through all that. We'll talk through some kind of cool concepts that I've learned over the last few years on just building better improvised positions. Some of the stuff that I've gotten from various PRS guys, Brian Morgan being one of them. He's one of the top, or was one of the top PRS guys in the nation. but just some really cool stuff and just stuff that's easy to take away. You know, some sling setup stuff is also helpful that will help you build different positions. Some concepts such as, you know, always support the front of the gun first, but then at the front of the gun supported, i.e. you're shooting off of a table or you're able to wrap your sling around a vertical post, then no need to have your front knee forward because you're not supporting the front of the gun any. So you go rear knee up so that you can support the back of the gun better. I mean, little stuff like that when you present it to people, they're like, yeah, it totally makes sense. But I, you know, 20 years in the teams and had not learned that lesson right there. So a bunch of stuff like that. And then we jump into the combative carbine block, and basically we go through our standard combatives protocols. So, you know, nothing on you that cuts, perforates, penetrates, or goes bang. With our carbines, we end up just pulling bolts and charging handles. And then I have tie pads, and I tape a piece of plywood to the tie pad so I can actually catch for guys throwing muzzle strikes with it. So then we just go through a whole series on, okay, this is one of the big reasons why I like Strike Ready, because you can smash people very, very effectively with that. But the muzzle strike ultimately is just, it's another tool in the toolbox. It is not the end all be all to fighting with a carbine. You can, if you telegraph your muzzle strike or you start outside of reactionary gap, it's absolutely possible for guys to slip or for you to miss. And so then we need to know, what do we do if we miss? And that can range anything from, you know, throwing some elbows to buy some time to pull a pistol out, or throwing some elbows to buy some time to pull a blade out. Just depends on what the position is. But again, it's all about giving guys options. The more options you have, and the more you're able to deploy a lethal tool with either hand, the harder you are to deal with. So we do all that, and then we end with a little bit of a stress course. So some running and gunning, some smashing stuff, just some stuff that is fun to do. It's a Hoo-Yah rep, but also hopefully it points out deficiencies to people. And that's another key thing that we always try and enforce it, or open guys' eyes to, is that training should not be about just going, oh man, you were awesome, and no, you were even more awesome. That's, you know, that might be good for guys' egos, but it doesn't actually make you a better shooter or a better fighter. If you have a failure in training and then you really take that to heart and you apply corrective procedures and you fix that, then that's a net win right there. I mean, if I get my deficiencies pointed out to me during training, that's great. That's a huge net positive for me, because that's one less thing that I am likely to fail at if, you know, when things end up being real.
That's great, man. And as expected, right? The course that you outlined, I'm sure it goes way deeper than that. But even just from that outline, it sounds like probably one of the most comprehensive, you know, carbine courses that, you know, on the market. I want to clarify something before I kick it over to Kent. But so obviously you're mentioning, you know, as is typical, and those that are unfamiliar with your background, or at least with regard to the other course content that you offer, I like to sum you up that your courses cover everything from zero to distance, right? You know, you mentioned, you know, the strike ready positions that essentially, you know, the hand to hand or physical, you know, the traditional combatives aspect of weapons employment. But you mentioned something that struck me as interesting, and I know that this is a common question that often comes up. Even Kent and I get these questions, but you mentioned bringing in some aspects and some elements of the training and pointers, whatever you want to call them, from the PRS realm. So in your mind, even based from your own personal experiences, or just the way that you've seen it employed in more of a, I hate to try to diminish the industry here, but, you know, the civilian world, right? What in your mind, aside, you know, if we can agree that zero is the closest, and you're bringing in aspects and attributes from PRS matches or PRS instructors, what is a good, effective, and reasonable distance to expect out of a carbine that you're going to leverage for these types of environments? Like what are you setting your rifle up for?
The little 11.5-inch pistol that I was running this past weekend I've run that out to 840, topped with a Razor HD3 1 to 10. The only reason I stopped at 840 was because that's where the range stopped. I would expect to get at least another 200 yards consistently out of that platform. So really, to me, it's not so much the caliber or the barrel length, although those things obviously do put an impact into how far you can shoot. But I think it's much more the optic on there. So I look at it as any of the red dots. You're talking realistically, it's a 200-yard gun. Can you shoot further? Of course you can, but you can't see your misses further than that. And that's really, if you can see where you're missing, be it from your own optics, self-spotting, or from someone spotting for you, and then you have points that you can hold over, you can hit, with all sorts of things. I mean, I've gotten, I think the furthest red dot hits I've got, or single hit that I got, was 600 yards with an AK, and that's not, that's not a, wow, this is, that's the effective range of that tool. I had a good guy spotting for me with glass, and he was like, nope, hold up another 2 feet. And I had a berm that I could just look at and just keep, super elevating and sending them. And he was able to see misses, and I had a very stable shooting platform. And so if you can see where your misses are, you can see you can shoot pretty far. So yeah, I have no issues, teaching. I mean, for this particular course, normally it's just a 200 yard and in type course. If perchance the range has, 500 to 700 yards, we'll open that up during the time when we do positional shooting. But this course doesn't cover mils and minutes and, dialing dope and all that stuff. That would fall into the hybrid carbine course that we do, which I define a hybrid carbine as kind of an upgrade to a recce rifle. A true recce rifle being, the 2.5 to 10 rifles that our gunsmiths used to build for us. And they were just, Colt M4s that our gunsmiths souped up with better barrels and free float tubes and, Night Force 2.5 to 10s on them. But now with the advent of the 1 to 6 and then the 1 to 8s and now the 1 to 10s, you've got a platform that you can shoot. I mean, I'll make on my touch point, strike ready and low ready shots. I'll break sub half second shots, with a 1 to 10, within a certain, within a fairly close distance. But that's as fast as I can break a shot with a red dot sight. And so you've got a very versatile platform where you can do that with, with a LPVO that you can then crank up to 10 power and shoot out to, 800 plus yards. I mean, that's really, really versatile. And really, if it wasn't for the cost and the fact that they're harder to run with and they're heavier and they're harder to run with night vision, I think it would completely kill the red dot.
Fair point. Excellent. Thank you for that. Kent, what you got, buddy?
So let's go over some particulars of the class. What should a guy who's coming to this, because I've been asked, so now I'll have an answer. What should a guy be bringing to this? Should my man be rolling in plate carriers and helmets and fucking whatever he's got, like all the gear? Or should he be in jeans and a t-shirt with a rifle slung? What should a person expect to be wearing or using?
So in the gear list, I tell guys that they can do basically either of those options, and everything in between is fine, because I do think there's a time and a place for it. I don't recommend throwing your helmet on if we're not doing night work. I sure as heck wouldn't. But if you've never run a plate carrier and you want to get reps with a plate carrier, absolutely knock yourself out. I think all of the variations that you talked about are legitimate. I mean, there are times, I mean, I have a nightstand carbine. I live out in the country. There are times when I grab my rifle to go investigate, in which case I'm not wearing a plate carrier. I generally, now I'll just teach with, jeans and a t-shirt, and a mag in my back pocket. And I do think that is a legitimate thing to learn how to do, back pocket reloads. If you want to slap a single Kydex mag pouch on there, again, go for it. If guys want to do battle belts, go for it. However, I'm not a huge proponent of running battle belts, and I will just, since we're on that topic, I'll kind of give you what we call LOT, logical order of thought, behind that. Basically, just as a standard, I always have a pistol. I always have, another strong side blade. I've got a pocket blade. I'll have an extra mag for my pistol. I have a flashlight. I've got a tourniquet. Like, I have all these things are just normal. I have them on me all the time. If a time comes that I think maybe I should grab a rifle and go investigate something, there might be a time when you just grab the rifle. If I think maybe I should have more than one magazine, I should probably put plates on. And if I, just because that means I think potentially people are going to be shooting back at me, I should probably put plates on. If I then take the time to put a battle belt on, now I have to actually take off my inside the waistband holster. I've got to take off my other strong side blade, and then, reposition those tools onto a battle belt, or have, spares of everything and, sitting there in the battle belt. And that just, it would take a lot longer, and for what? And then the other thing is, if I get someplace and I put on my plate carrier, and then I decide I should, this is no longer appropriate to have a plate carrier on, I just, take the plate carrier off. And now I'm back to normal concealed carry guy. If I need to tuck my t-shirt in so I have a slightly faster draw stroke, okay. But I honestly, I actually practice transitions from concealment all the time. It really doesn't slow you down a whole lot. It does slow you down a little bit, but not much.
Very cool. I like that. Thank you for taking me through the thought process. So, on the topic of use case here, most of us are just guys, right? We're just civilian dudes. What role, and I know this goes to modern Minuteman and all that stuff, but we have people here watching who maybe have no idea who you are until this show. What is the role of a carbine in the everyday life of a civilian, and what does that mean to you?
It's a significantly more capable tool, right? I mean, I would carry a rifle on me all the time, except for the fact that when you walk into a mall, people start screaming. And also there's no, you give up an element of surprise, right? Speed, surprise, and violence of action. That's what wins fights for us. So with a pistol on me, I can maintain that element of surprise for as long as I need to. With a carbine, the carbine is more of you have a lot of problems showing up at your doorstep, right? I mean, but basically the carbine makes it so that an average guy can look at 20 dudes on his driveway and say, no, you guys aren't coming into my house. Like I have a vote. In fact, I have 20 negative votes that I can do very fast. And honestly, like it's not a hard thing to do. It's obviously a significantly lower likelihood of things. 10 years ago, you would have said, give me a scenario where this makes sense. And you would have been reaching into, some figment of someone's imagination. And now that's no longer the case. I mean, now we've got this, some pretty crazy stuff happening. So it's a great increase in capability that you can have, be it for any kind of civil unrest, basically for times when things are bad, or just for, home defense. Some people will say, oh, the, over penetration of the round. Yes, it's going to penetrate significantly, but you have to be smart with how you set up shooting lanes in your house, regardless of what caliber you're shooting, right? Just because I have, Glazer safety slugs in my pistol, which by the way, I don't, but if I did have something like that, I still don't get to just shoot where I know my kids are on the other side of the drywall, right? So you have to have some forethought and decide, okay, where are the lanes that I can shoot? Where are the lanes that I can't shoot? Or maybe certain lanes I can only send pelvic girdle shots or lower because, kids are above that. So It's absolutely, it's a simple to use platform. I mean, you talk about, handing it to, if your wife has a baseline level of training and she hears some problems, it's something that you could set up at the top of a staircase, you know, have the light ready to go and, put the dot on the problem and pull the trigger, repeat. And it's a very, very simple tool to use and very effective. And the rounds, just because of the nature of rifle rounds, because they're going so much faster, have much greater terminal performance than any of our pistol rounds. And honestly, it requires significantly less training to be good with a carbine than it does with a pistol.
Awesome. I like that answer. I'll give you one more, and then we'll kind of stray off of the simple basic civilian topics. But what is a distance at which you think the average civilian self-defender should be proficient with a rifle? What's realistic?
1,000 yards.
I like it.
No,
I love it.
No, honestly, I think if you're running a carbine, a carbine's a 200-yard end gun. What is you're not gonna be in fear for your life at 200 yards. But that's just it's such a simple thing to be able to get BC steel size hits at 200 yards. That I would absolutely say that's a level of proficiency to be able to make shots like that. Realistic engagement distances for civilians, I believe, is with a rifle is going to be much more like 10 to 15 yards right in there. I mean, just thinking, long hallways in a house or, across a driveway, something along those lines. Much closer distances.
Makes sense. And we've got some questions in the chat here. So I'll read out one by MG. Clarify the difference between rifle, carbine, and pistol for the younger crowd and their effective use. And he's talking about a rifle, a carbine, and then an AR pistol. What are the differences in those things? Either your question was so terrible or Bill has frozen.
No, I think Bill might have froze up on us.
Okay. Well, since he's texting. He says lost you. All right. TJ, you want to answer MG's question while I try to get Bill back?
Yeah, essentially, we're looking at the overall length of the barrel, right? Now there is some overall configuration differences that we can expect to find when we're classifying, long guns under those three categories. But generally speaking, you're going to expect, so let's look at modern examples, right? So the M16A2, right, has a longer barrel. If I remember correctly off the top of my head, it is a 16-inch barrel. It might be a little bit longer than that, but there are some that have, upwards of 18-inch barrels, and in some cases even 20 plus. I would categorize a rifle anything from a traditional 16-inch length to, upward and up. Carbine length barrels are going to be more of your intermediate length, right? So 16 to about that 14, 13 and a half range. And then you're going to have your pistols, which are going to be substantially shorter. I would say around, that 12, 11 on down to, even some pistol configurations having 5 or 6 inch lengths. All right. We've got Bill back. Bill, welcome back. We're glad you're okay.
Excellent.
Did Kent hurt you? Blink twice if we need to send a rescue team.
I thought maybe it was an EMP. No.
I mean, it might have been. Hold on. Let me check mine.
Yeah. If anybody has one, it's the ginger.
Okay. So I lost you right as you were going into a question from, I believe, MG.
Yes. So we just answered his question since you just, but the difference between rifle.
Hold on, let's be clear. TJ tried to answer the question. I will immediately defer to the expert on the panel, which is neither one of us two.
There you go. Perfect. So you can see it on the screen. Clarify the difference between rifle, carbine, and pistol in the AR world.
So it's getting much more nebulous now to make those distinctions due in large part to the nature of the current gun laws in the United States. So I would look at traditionally a rifle being something more 20-inch or longer. In the AR world, a carbine being something 16 to 10 inches, anything below 16 now that's an actual rifle falls into a short barreled rifle, which is controlled. You have to do a lot more paperwork to have. And so a few years back, some innovative guys came up with these things called braces, which make your 10 and a half or 11 and a half inch AR technically a pistol. Well, not technically, it is a pistol due to that is how the ATF is operating at this time. So we'll see. That is subject to change right now with the current administration. But as the laws stand right now, that's where we're at.
I wasn't too far off.
No, man, you guys were literally 2 inches apart. TJ said 18, you said 20.
Bill, I'll leave that one alone if you leave that one alone.
Yeah, fair enough. That 2 inches is a lot.
Same team here, Bill. Same team.
Never mind. Yeah. So that was pretty good. So let's get into a little bit of like the rifle setup itself. Like, I'm the guy and I've only got one, and Lord knows that ain't the truth because I got about 11. But if I was the guy that was going to have a rifle and it was going to be for what you define as your purpose for a civilian, that guy, general user, what would you, I mean, you don't have to name specific brands if you do or don't want to, but like, what would be your jam? What would you be like, man, you should set this up. This is what you should do on the go.
I would get an Amtac Centurion pistol.
Perfect. I didn't know you had one to be real.
Yeah, we did. Monty and I did a collaboration. Monty owns Centurion Arms. We were teammates. We went through 18 Delta together. He makes phenomenal rifles, Centurion Arms. Yes, absolutely. Hashtag shameless plug.
Perfect.
So that's what I mean, to me, that's the, he does a lot of stuff right. And with that particular setup, we spec'd it out the way I like a rifle and or pistol. But basically, I would, the key things are, we want a mil spec or mil spec-ish. And what I mean by that is get forged uppers and lowers. The billet stuff, you can do more, you can make them look prettier. You can do all sorts of ambi stuff on there. But you really don't need it. And the forged stuff is actually stronger. So I recommend everyone get forged upper and lower. And then go with, and then get a nice light, skinny free float tube. I recommend M-lock all the way around, except for 12 o'clock position. I'd stick with a full pick rail on that. I like that top pick rail just for grabbing onto it, bites into your thumb a little bit, allows you to pull back pressure without putting a stop on the bottom of the thing or a vertical foregrip. The number one thing in any firearm that you think you are going to use, or the purpose of that firearm is to protect yourself and your families, it is reliable. It is more important than how accurate it is, than the trigger, than any of that things. The most important is that it is as reliable as you can make that platform. Then once I had invested in mil spec upper and lower and a nice skinny free flow tube, and part of the reason for the nice skinny lightweight free flow tube is lightweight is good, fast into action is what wins, right? Fast and accurate is what wins. There was a trend a while ago to have these really heavy, like spiral fluted barrels and stuff like that. And the companies that were doing them were making beautiful rifles, but if you are carrying the thing all day, it starts to slow you down, because the difference between a 7-pound rifle and a 8 or 9-pound rifle is significant, and especially 10, 12 hours into something. So after I do that, the next place where I would put dollars into would be a flash suppressor. And again, this you kind of have to go back to my paradigm of how I've experienced violence. It was overwhelmingly at nighttime. So if you don't have a flash suppressor on the end of your rifle, then every time you pull the trigger, you're giving away your position. So to me, that's very, very important. It's significantly more important than if you have some sort of comp on there. What are you gaining in terms of faster follow-up shot? I mean, we're talking in the several hundredths of a second faster follow-up shot. In the real world, that means nothing. But if every time I shoot, I give away my position, that is a massive disadvantage to myself. And with a rifle, or even with a 10.5 or 11.5 inch pistol with the proper flash suppressor, we can do we can almost eliminate muzzle flash. Depending on the barrel length, we actually can eliminate muzzle flash. So I would recommend Surefire 3-prong, Smith Vortex 4-prong, the B Myers 4-prong. We used to use those ones at work, or the AAC 3-prongs. Any of those work very, very well. I run all the Surefire ones now. Then next would be optics. If you cannot see what you're shooting at, or you can't aim, then what good are you? Or, well, actually you can do some good, but it's within like 5 or 7 yards, however good you are to do a natural point of aim shot. So I recommend for everyone their first, if you're setting up your first AR setup with red dot sight. Red dot sights are easier to use. They're way lighter. They're cheaper. And they have, if you get the right one, they have great night vision compatibility. The red dot sights that I like the most are the Aimpoint T2s. To me, that's kind of sets the standard for an RDS. The cheapest one currently that I would trust my life to would be an Aimpoint Pro. They come in around $400. I have a ton of cheaper red dot sights as well, and I'm constantly, I guess, waiting and checking to see when the $150 RDS is gonna, will be as good or almost as good as the $600 or $700 RDS, and it's just not there yet. Fine on a better than iron sights. If you can't afford a $600 T1 or $800 T2, absolutely put a Vortex Crossfire on, or a Hollow Sun 403B, something along those lines. They're good. I've actually been impressed with I haven't been able to break a Hollow Sun little RDS yet. So there is, I think, as the technology matures, the price will continue to come down with that stuff. But for right now, I still tell guys, hey, if this is something that is, your family's life is going to be on the line, at a minimum, Aimpoint Pro. They also give you the better battery life, and that's the other thing is I would shy away from any of the ones that use the lasers to project the dots, even though you can, like the EOTechs. They do have a finer reticle, but that's not what a carbine is for. Between a 1 minute dot or a 2 minute dot at practical carbine distances, it means nothing. But having a battery that lasts for multiple years on a reasonable setting is huge. And then, in fact, that's what I would recommend guys do. If you have a nightstand carbine, just leave the dot on and swap batteries out once a year. And with a good RDS, you'll have that. So optics. Then if you had an RDS equipped gun already, then going the LPVO route is recommended. I mean, it requires a little bit more training, but if it's your second gun and hopefully you've been getting some reps in, you can make it work. And what I mean by it requires more training is you have to be more deliberate with your cheek weld, right? My eye relief needs to be right. If I see a bunch of scope shadow and I put the dot where it needs to go, the rounds will not go where they're supposed to go due to the parallax. Whereas with just a straight RDS, you can have that dot in the very top portion of it, put the dot where it needs to go, and the rounds will go where they need to go. I've tried with LPVOs, and it does not work the same way. So it requires a little bit more training. They're bigger, heavier, they cost more. The top ones on the market right now, the Razor HD3, the Vortex 1-10, that's the one I'm running on. I have one, so it tends to come off of one rifle and go onto another rifle when it keeps it someplace, just because it's a cool optic. But however, so there's a price to be paid on top of the dollars for all this, and that's size, weight, and then also at 10 power, and that eye box is you got to be on it with your eye box. For the way I use that system, I don't see it as a big deal. I run any kind of LPVO. I run on 1 power until you actually have to see something, right? And in which case you're on target already, and you flip it over, you zoom in a little bit, or you're on your belly and you're fixing to shoot something a little bit further out, in any of those cases you have time to make a shot. I don't recommend running around with that thing on 4 power. Definitely don't run around with it on 10 power because it's going to be slower. The next would be the Night Force Attacker 1-8. Also great scope. That one, you're losing 2 power, but they give you a night vision setting. So I have run those before, students' guns that had attackers on them with night vision. It's suboptimal, but it does work. And then lastly, this one's a little bit dated now, but there's probably some deals to be had on them. The Razor HD2s. The 1-6s, it's a first focal plane scope, so you're only going to shoot your holds on 6 power. Don't shoot your holds on 1 power because it's not true. It's not a true mill reticle at that point. But what you get with all 3 of those scopes is a daytime visible red dot, which is huge. That's really what allows you to shoot the thing so fast, is having that daytime visible red dot. So that's kind of what I would look for in an optic. Then next would be barrel. There's so many good barrels. It's actually really, really uncommon these days to find just absolutely horrible AR barrels. We came across one at Altus 2 months ago. A guy had one that was like, he's a younger shooter, or newer shooter, not a younger shooter, and he's just all over the place. And someone handed him a Magus of good Black Hills 77 grain, and still all over the place. And then a more experienced shooter hopped on his gun and was like, nope, it's the gun, it's not you, it's really rare when you get to actually tell someone that. But in this case it was. So I would honestly say if it's a 200 yard and in gun, unless it's that particular gun, you don't have to worry about it. Most of those guns will shoot 2 inches all day long, 2 inches at 100. So 4 inches at 200 is well within acceptable for a carbine. Most reputable ARs will do significantly better than that. Not hard at all to find ARs that'll do an inch, right? A 1 minute gun. And then the last thing would be a trigger. The Geisley SSA is probably still my favorite trigger to put on there. To me, that's about what right looks like in a carbine. It's about 4.5 pounds. Anything less than that, I would not have on a work gun. On a precision, true precision rifle, like specifically a bolt gun precision rifle, I'm going to have significantly lighter trigger. That is utilized completely different than any of the gas guns are. They're supposed to be your jack of all trades, right? And if you happen to have to kick a door in and then make an entry, you don't want a 1 pound trigger on the thing. It's just too light. So that's what I would look for. Oh, and then lastly, guys, put slings on your rifles. The best one out there, or the one that I recommend, or I guess the least flawed slings that I have found are the VTAC adjustable non-padded slings. There's a lot of other guys that are doing adjustments on their slings, but they either pull the wrong way to adjust. With the VTAC one, you're pushing forward, which is how you're strong. So if I build a position and then want to sling up with it, I can push it forward like that and actually tighten everything up. And then likewise, if I had it slung and I climbed over something and it's time to get off of it, I'm just, grabbing onto my rifle and kind of grabbing the release, and I'm pushing forward as well. When you set your slings up, make sure that when the sling is necklaced, you can still switch shoulders. And then when the sling is, when the rifle barrel, if you're right-handed shooter, muzzle is down off your right side, that when you cinch it up properly, the rifle will not move. So you can go lay hands on someone, or go do medicine on someone, or climb over a wall, or any of that stuff. That's a big one that guys get wrong a lot of times, is showing up with a sling. I do recommend hard pointing the front of your sling, and then having a QD on the back of your sling. And the reason for that is positional shooting. There's some really cool stuff that you can do with, if you can pop that rear QD and then wrap it around different things, you can build some pretty solid positions. So yeah, I used to be kind of anti QDs on rifle slings because it's another point of failure. And I was always like, when do you need to take your sling off? Other than you just didn't buy a second sling for your, the 20 rifles in your safe. You wanted to get by with one sling for all of them. I always tell guys, your rifle is not complete unless it has a sling. Otherwise, you might come across a time when your choices are drag your buddy back and leave your rifle, or leave your buddy and hang on to your rifle, or climb over a wall with your rifle, or throw your rifle over the wall and then climb over it. All of those are bad choices. Suck it up, buy the $35 sling, and put them on every rifle that you own.
Yeah, I would second that with every long gun.
No, 100%.
Right.
And
Yeah,
every rifle should have a sling on it.
Yep. But whether it's going to be shotgun, hunting rifle, carbine, your nightstand, bump in the night, shooting prairies off, shooting coyotes out of your front yard rifle, two-legged predators, right? If you
100%.
if you wouldn't have a pistol without a holster, your long gun shouldn't be without a sling.
Correct. And you can get, if you're worried about in and around vehicles, you can get Ranger bands. They sell them on Amazon. They're overpriced black rubber bands, but they're really heavy duty. And you just shove, you put them over your free float tube, and then you just S-fold your sling. So it's still attached. I like attaching all the way to the rear of the gun and then just forward to the receiver. That's where I prefer to mount. And then all the excess just gets S-folded and goes underneath that rubber band. And that makes for a nice slick package, a lot less likely to get caught on anything. And then it's literally just one rip, and you can get that thing necklaced.
Very cool. So how about illumination?
Yes. Also another, you should have a light on your gun. I do night vision stuff, so I like the Surefire Vampire ones. The Scout ones are great. Having that ability to just rotate the bezel and go from white light to IR is huge. I had totally discounted the IR lights on flashlights because back in the day, if we wanted IR lights on a flashlight, we had the
filter cap
IR covers. But we were running, the really, really old Surefire Scout, some of the first Surefire Scouts, and the amount of output that you were getting with that was pathetic. So we used it more as just like to cover your white light so you wouldn't have a white light AD. But now these new ones work phenomenal. So definitely, they're pricey, but it's a worthwhile thing to have if you think you're going to be running with night vision on potentially. You need to be able to see what you're shooting at, and there's definitely times either in deep woods or cloud cover or no loom days where you absolutely need a loom, and then especially for guys that are just going the cheaper route, just RDS and IR flashlight is generally the cheaper route. If guys, I do recommend, if guys are setting up a rifle for fighting at nighttime, you should have an IR laser with an IR illuminator as well. But it's better to have the software and understand that you can make do with an RDS and a flashlight as well.
Yeah. So for the folks I've been curious about your recommendations on this as well. So look, I'm saving my money for night vision, right? I don't have it yet. It's coming down the road, whatever have you. Want illumination, but also want to have the capability of, or at least the consciousness of thought to be light discipline aware, right? What are your thoughts on colored lens filters? The traditional red lens cap, right? For that, for as an augmentation to that. Buy or pass on that and just be smarter with your white light.
I would pass. And so part of my system, the way I run it is I don't have tapes. I don't have pressure switches at all because it is so easy to white light AD with that. I messed around with that early in my career, and they were constantly ripping out or melting, or, they would pull the plug out, and then I'd get water into my laser. And so I got away from that. And most of the guys that I ran with, my time frame, did the same thing. We just used the tail caps that are protected. It's much harder to white light or IR AD with a protected tail cap. And then I just set it up so that I'm just toggling the thing with my thumb, when it's time to go. And then I just direct toggle my laser as well. So I just reach up and actually press down with my thumb, and I can do that, other strong side or strong side lead, doesn't matter. I can operate it that way. And then that also gives you the added benefit with your laser of being able to, your thumb is right next to the adjustment for the laser. So you can just, your thumb can just scroll over and shift. So if it does, say you're going from something external to in a courtyard where now your dual high setting is washing everyone out, you just, click over 2 settings, and then now you're on dual low, or maybe just a low power. But I've gotten away from that. The one time where I wished I had a tape switch was it was really, really cold in Afghanistan, and I couldn't feel where my hands were numb, and I couldn't feel where the button was on the laser. And so just having a spot where I could have just by, a tape switch is a bigger spot, just be able to reach over, thumb over, and grab the thing.
Makes sense.
So let's, for a minute, let me ask you about PID in a civilian context, positive identification of lethal threat, and some of the misconceptions and some of the failure points with white light use. So I hear a lot that you cannot use a weapon light for PID because you're pointing a weapon at a potential non-combatant. And maybe you could unpack some of that for us, because I hear that.
Yeah. So first and foremost, having a weapons mounted light does not absolve you from carrying a flashlight in your pocket. You should absolutely. It's one of the things that drives me crazy if I see video of a cop, searching a vehicle with his weapons mounted pistol light. That's really, it's negligence when guys are doing that. You should have a good, yes, there we go.
Wait,
well
done. We're twinsies.
Yeah. So
we should have flashlights in our pockets at all times. Here, just to prove that I'm practicing what I preach. The Stiletto Pro, you can smash with this thing as well, because see how it sticks out on either side of my hand right there. So looping hooks or hammer fists, you can crush people. Anyways, so you should have, first and foremost, you should have a handheld flashlight. If you're at the point where you're pulling a rifle out, things have escalated significantly. So I would say that if I hear glass breaking in my house, I'm going to PID with a weapons mounted light. 100%. If there are 20 people that are angry and are now on our property, and they have ill intent, absolutely they're getting white lighted with a weapons mounted light. Just because that's the right thing to do at that point.
I like it. So one of the things that's often said in the stupid civilian questions world is just the whole, is there ever a time when it's appropriate to PID with weapons mounted versus not? And of course, the first answer is, hey man, you can have 2 lights. Nobody said you couldn't have another light. And then kind of moving down the paradigm is there's some times where, just like you said, so glass breaking is a perfect example or whatever. If you're the guy inside the structure and everybody you love is behind you, the kids and the wife and whatever, and you've been yelling GTFO for the last, 15 seconds and you still hear somebody pushing through that door. Things have escalated. I like things.
Well, we can summarize it pretty easily, I think. A weapons-mounted light, the intention of that apparatus is to identify your target. That implies that the thing you are pointing it at has become a target. It has maintained that trajectory from possibility or potential threat to a target that deserves to be engaged in some way, shape, or form, either be it in a standby fashion, as Bill alluded to, you're going to get white lighted with a weapon mounted light. If you're one of the 20 on his front porch, there's a problem for you, right?
You're not getting up to my front porch, by the way.
Fair point. But
25 yards.
25 yards. Wait, inside the perimeter or away from the porch?
That you've already been trespassing for a long time if you're 25 yards. A long time. So
you better pack a lunch, son. It's a hike.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think that's the best way to sum it up, because what we have to remember is PID is more than just I can see you and I know what you are. You have to discern that there is a legitimate threat, right?
And what's the alternative? I mean, that would be the other thing. I mean, I'm not saying there might be a time where you have a rifle slung and kind of like partially concealed behind you, and I've got a white light in my left hand, and I'm walking out. Hey guys, what's up? Again, still within a certain distance, but like, hey, and then you're white lighting guys with your flashlight, saying, hey, all right, you guys, it's time to leave. Oh, and then they escalate things. Nope. And then we're either repocketing or we're just dropping the flashlight, and we're going to a weapons mounted light. And then that allows you to see, though, because not necessarily everyone is going to, there needs to be motive and ability for them to cause you harm, right? So just because there's 20 guys in your yard, well, if only half of them are armed and only half of them advance on you, then you don't need to burn everyone down. Therefore, having weapons mounted light is huge, because now I can actually look and go, okay, well, he's he is actively showing intent, advancing towards me, and his buddy, while it doesn't like me any better, but he doesn't have tools in his hand, and he's not advancing on me right now, and I need some sort of a light in order to be able to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a question from Bullet Sponge in the chat about the pros and cons between your Surefire stiletto and our traditional tube light. So for those that might be listening to this on podcast, there was a moment ago where we all kind of played a video phone whip it out and compare, where Kent and I were displaying our Streamlight ProTac HLX with a Theorem switchback, and Bill with his BDE Surefire stiletto. That's big dick energy for those playing the home game. So I've been looking at that, right? So I think I can speak to this a little bit, at least with my experiences with the tube light. I have been looking at the stilettos, because I will say this, while I have no issues carrying this light, because I understand the utility and the capability that it brings to me in my pocket. And again, with that handy pocket clip and the finger ring for retention, it's a bulky sumbitch. Like, it's a hoss to carry around in a jeans pocket, right? But what's been your experience with the stiletto? I can assume you own one, so I can assume you like it, but what's been your pros and cons to it?
I do like it. I was a little bit hesitant initially, just because, coming from in service, it was, I wanted everything running off of 123s, 3-volt lithium batteries, because you can swap those out in the field. But that was me thinking too much on the mill side of things. As a civilian, when I travel, I have at least one, if not two or three, between 10 and 20,000 milliamp hour batteries with me. I mean, that's just basic. I mean, anytime I go on a hike, I have something like that, because that powers my, the best communications device that I have, my cell phone, right? Which is also the best navigation device that I have. And guys are used to plugging in their cell phones at nighttime plugging in a light, once a month, because really that's about all I'm doing. It's really not a big deal. The things last for an incredibly long time. The shape of it, again, thought it was a little bit weird at first, and then the more I started using it and realized, especially with the Pro, slightly bigger, it does fit on either side of my hand, which is something that, that's one of the main things that I look for in a flashlight, because I want to be able to strike with it. I want to be able to bleach, i.e. blind people, and then right during that bleach, you're following it up with a smash, if obviously situationally appropriate. If the flashlight is big enough to stick out just a little bit on both sides of your hand, then you can hammer fist with a thing, and then you can also throw hooks with it, and you're just, instead of hooking with your knuckles, you're hooking with the bezel side of the flashlight. So I really like it. The clips, I don't use the clips as they envision you to use the clips, because of the way I run my spare magazine. I front pocket carry my spare magazine. So if I had a clip mounted flashlight on my pocket, every time I do a combat reload, my flashlight would go flying. So my system is the flashlight and the spare magazine both are in my front left pocket, and I can just reach down and grab either as needed. But I really do like the clip to be able to put onto the top of my hat. I don't know how much stuff I've built now at nighttime where, you're just coming up and clipping this thing on like so. And now you have, I've done finished up skis like that.
Now I'm buying one.
So I think they did it pretty good with this one, and it's got a couple lower settings on it. It's the one thing that's not quite as good at is, I live out in the boonies, and it's not quite as good at seeing, hey, what's across, one of our pastures is a little bit beyond 200 yards. And it's like, I can't really scan a tree line with that, but it's really wide. I think for general, for most people, it's 1,000 lumens, just has a really wide dispersion on the beam. But it's a good flashlight. I recommend it.
No, that's good stuff. Yeah, I like those clip designs where you can throw them on the brim of your hat. Actually, I have a micro light that I keep. I think it's actually it's Glock branded, but I think it's one of Streamlight's smaller models. But it's got kind of an S clip to it, so you can either clip it to your pocket or clip it to the front of your hat, and it stays in my bag, like whenever I go to work and stuff. If I'm not carrying this big old hoss with me, I've got something in that extra utility. You drop shit in your car, man, or you're trying to look under the hood of your vehicle or whatever have you. It comes in handy with that capability.
It's huge. Yeah.
There goes the need for headlamps.
No, don't get it twisted. I still keep a headlamp in my Jeep.
Oh,
yeah. If I'm going camping, I'll take a headlamp. But if I know I'm going for a hike or a ski or something like that, and I'm not planning on being out after dark now, for me checks the box, because I've run for hours and hours with this thing on low power, without it dying on me.
That's really cool. So we're coming up towards the end of our hour and so here, but I want to give you an opportunity to kind of, because you've gotten an audience here that is actually distinctly different than it was the last time. It's interesting who jumps onto what live shows or whatever. So give us just, if you will, just a little bit about some of your overall philosophy on stuff, and delve a little bit more into that modern Minuteman thing. For some of the guys that are on here right now, like who is Bill Rapier and what is your kind of niche in the training and the firearms community? What makes you kind of tick a little bit? There's a couple people on here who could benefit from hearing some of the stuff that you said last time. So hammer it out.
Who is Bill Rapier? First and foremost, I'm a Christian follower of Christ. If we're talking philosophy and what's most important to us, that is going to be the most important thing. Where I put emphasis in training is, or kind of my bent on the training side of it is the combatives. you should be able to fight. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Guys that say, well, I don't need to know how to fight because I carry a 45 are horribly mistaken. You should probably know how to fight even more if you carry a pistol, because it's always we want to win. A higher level win is winning with a lower level of violence, right? So if that means I can smash someone in the face and walk away, that is a significantly higher win than even if I was justified to burn the guy down. I mean, that's better for him. It's better for me. So I come at things from a combative focus. I also come at things from a very practical, I touched a little bit on the battle belt thing. That's a super common thing in industry. Everyone wears battle belts when they train. I wear battle belts if I'm teaching a class full of cops that are, that's because that's the closest to a patrol belt, or once a year when I teach a night vision specific course, because if I have a night vision specific course and I'm wearing a helmet and armor and everything else, it doesn't matter if I'm exposed carrying. The rest of the time I run concealed. And I think that's that's a big thing to it's a big thing to take away. What you can expect training with me. I want guys to ask questions. I know that some of the stuff that I believe in is outside of what the industry norms are. I mean, Strike Ready being an easy example. The industry is dominated by former Army guys, and Army guys think that Navy guys run around sweeping each other in the head the whole time with Strike Ready, and it's a fundamental misunderstanding of the position. Strike Ready is a transitional position, right? I want to be tip on or muzzle on as long as possible. However, I know that if I leave that rifle shouldered and I come around a threshold and you grab onto that thing, it's very easy for you to push the muzzle offline and also to drive. You basically have a lever on the person that's attached right to their shoulder, and I can, we pull bolts out, and I show guys this. It's a simple thing to do. If you're in the Strike Ready position, just as you're breaking corners or barricades or anything like that, again, specific to if there's potential for immediate threat. Not if you can, obviously, if I can clear a barricade from 20 yards, then it's a non-issue. Keep the thing shouldered. But if things are tight and you have to go through the threshold of a door or clear a barricade where your muzzle's maybe an inch off of the barricade, then being in Strike Ready just as you're coming around the corner is massive. Because again, your default should not be make the guy's head explode. Your default should be smash him in the face. If you can't process things fast enough, smash him in the face. You can always apologize if you smash someone in the face. If you make their head explode, you cannot apologize to them.
Very cool. Appreciate that. And then lastly, one more quick topic. Jay Sprad brought up sword maker. He's of course referring to your knives. He's being silly because he's probably partially drunk. But talk about the blade stuff a little bit.
Yeah, so all of my blade stuff comes from Sayak Kali and Atienza Kali. And actually they've got a lot more guys over in y'all's neck of the woods. So if you guys have the ability to train with those guys, I would highly recommend it. It's basically a martial system that is still martial, meaning warlike. So much of I generally don't even like saying martial arts because guys think of the McDojo down the street, where the guy is saying bow to your sensei, right? And it's not. It has nothing to do with fighting anymore. Sayak and Atienza Kali both are martial, meaning warlike skills. So that's where all my stuff comes from. The way I teach blade work is within the framework of combatives and within the framework of I carry a gun on me, 99.9% of the time. Therefore, I want the blade to complement my pistol skills. It doesn't supplant my pistol skills, right? If I have the ability to draw a pistol and it's tactically and situationally appropriate, I'm going to pull a pistol out. But if my right hand is busy, i.e., checking someone else's gun hand or anchoring mine, right? didn't realize until someone else had their hand on top of my, pistol and inside of its holster still. Like, and now I'm anchoring either with my forearm or with my hand on top of their hand, trying to hold it in. Having that ability to draw a lethal tool with my other strong hand is massive. It makes guys an order of magnitude harder. And I know this because I've taken guys that are not fighters, that don't have grappling or striking experience. And you teach guys over the course of a few days that, hey, it's really not very hard. Once you understand these simple concepts, again, I didn't make this stuff up. The stuff comes from, specifically from SIOC, the integrated combatives part of it. So the blade stuff is huge, really. And to break it down one step further, if you're serious about violence, using tools is where you should start. The whole idea that you start with something that is less than lethal, that takes a lot longer. I mean, even let's talk an effective skill like boxing. Boxing is a great martial system, but it takes a while to be able to use that. I mean, within a couple hour block, you can teach someone to use a blade and be super, super dangerous, right? A lot less skill dependent, a lot less strength dependent, a lot more tool dependent, which is why we, teach firearms as well, because it's the same thing. It requires less training, less skill to be dangerous with it. I mean, if we took away firearms and if we took away all weapons, then it would truly be whoever was the best fighter won. But as soon as you add tools into the mix now, and then we add projectile weapons into the mix, it's a great equalizer. So everyone should take advantage of the fact that we live in a country where we can acquire tools, purpose-built tools for fighting, acquire those tools, gain proficiency with those tools, and then carry those tools.
Very cool. And just for clarity, Steve Hall wants to know, is a training blade required for the rifle class?
No, I will have one for you.
There you go. Very cool. So let's see. We might not have. Did we do this when he was on here last time? I don't remember if we did or if we didn't. But we're going to do it again because we do it on every show. Two things that we've been doing for every guest that comes on. Number one, if you would, give us some recommended reading.
The Bible and The Devil's Hand by Jack Carr.
There. Yeah, and just for a point of order, we did do this, and he recommended the Jack Carr series.
Yeah,
and dude, I have been addicted. I have listened to each book twice now. Phenomenal series. So
yeah, he's the only team guy author that I have either read or listened to since I was in high school.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you what. If I know the community, right? When you see Jack Carr, you give him a good old pat on the back from your favorite ginger, okay? Because damn fine work, man. That was awesome recommendation.
I will.
That's awesome. Okay, so we got the recommended reading out of the way. Now, if you would please, sir, give us a charity of choosing.
Voice of the Martyrs. They do work with the persecuted church, especially in Islamic countries and anywhere, in a lot of the communist countries. They're all over China, Pakistan, India, all those places where it can cost you your life to be a Christian. So they go in and they work specifically with the persecuted church. I believe their website is persecution.org. If you just type in Voice of the Martyrs, their stuff will pop up.
Very, very cool. Appreciate that.
And now, the one thing we didn't do last time,
now we surprised
was if you head on over to Teespring at the link that I've posted in the chat, I have a Bill Rapier inspired shirt design, Amateurs and Pros, while not necessarily voiced by our beloved guest. And by the way, for point of reference, Bill's past show is to date our most watched episode. So Bill, thank you for
excellent.
that.
Excellent.
Certainly well deserved, because damn, the content that you bring and the mindset and everything else that you bring with you whenever you come on is certainly appreciated. Dude, we love having you. But with that being said, this is inspired by a phrase that I heard from a fellow team guy. In short, amateurs train until they get it right. Professionals train until they can't get it wrong. And that phrase is designed onto the front and back, respectively, for these shirts, available in both men and women's designs and colors. With that being said, all proceeds from the sales of that shirt will be donated to Voice of the Martyrs at the end of the year. So, folks, get on over to Teespring at the link guys. And go buy those up.
Yeah, man, very cool. That's our little. That's what we're doing now. TJ's doing a show for every episode because he's not busy enough. I'm like, make shirts, Ginger, and he's like, bro, I don't know what to do.
Well, so the trick is when I kick it over to Kent, I've gotten all my talking out of the way, so I can do some design. That's why I have two screens.
Yeah, he's been making his shirts this whole time. It's great. So, listen, we're gonna have to have you on again because we just are. You're good at this, as it turns out. But that being said, man, look, Bill, we really, really appreciate your time. Time's one of the most valuable commodities we can give each other, and you've been very giving with yours. So, my respect to you and appreciation for that. As far as the listeners go, y'all are the best, man. This is the reason we're doing this, engaging questions and all that stuff. Steve Hall is like one credit card digit away from taking this class. I can just see it. He's like 4011-6289-2840-002, and he's about ready to hit that 3, and he's going to come on. And if I just guessed your credit card number, that's terrifying because I just made that shit up. But
well, now I've got to go change the combination on my luggage. Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, really. In all seriousness, guys, look, here at GMD, we don't host people we don't respect and appreciate. So Bill's coming. I cannot wait to get my learn on. I can't wait to see you teach me how to do a one-handed draw with a rifle. That's going to be fun. I'm sure you got one. I know you got one. Fucking one-handed draw. Make me work on more nonsense with a pistol than I was already working on this guy. I'm out there like, oh, I got this pistol shit. And he's like, no, you don't, homie. I got something for you. Son of a bitch. Anyway, in all seriousness, everybody, thank you so much. But we couldn't keep doing this for free without our affiliates and the people that help us make this show possible. And TJ is going to tell you about all them because I'm tired of talking.
Outstanding. So, Bill, formally on behalf of myself and Kent and all of the viewers, as well as those listening on the podcast, thank you again for giving us your time and coming on the show. But as Kent alluded to, this show, while we love doing it, is not free, for at least for us. So any contribution that you can make would be greatly appreciated. And we do that in the form of the stuff you're going to buy anyway. So if you head on over to greenmountaindefense.com/affiliate-links, you can check out all of our affiliate partners. When you're going to buy that gun stuff anyway, might as well buy it from people that we know and trust and give good quality customer service, as well as present good products. And every little bit that you purchase from them sends a little bit our way to help us keep bringing you this content week after week. Of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention Dark Angel Medical. If you're going to carry a gun, you should carry medical. And if you're not going to carry a gun, you should still carry medical. So head on over to darkangelmedical.com. Code BB15 will get you 15% off. Just tell them that the Sling'N Led podcast sent you in the order notes. We get no kickbacks from that, but we like to show Carrie Davis some love. See, I was almost redundant there and I avoided it. But with that, folks, that's all the time we have for this week. Until we see each other again, God bless you all. Take care of each other and get out and shoot.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.